Good evening, everybody. How is everybody doing? I'm smiling because I kind of know what the answer to that question probably is. Very similar to myself. So, first of all, thank you very much. I know we are a day earlier than we usually are. So, for those of you that are watching it live, appreciate that. Obviously, tomorrow I want to see England put in another substandard performance, but still pretend that we can go on and win the tournament. Anyway, and you know what? Today's not turned out to be too bad a day to jump onto the live stream because we've had some decent movement. We've had a continuation, yes. We are continuing in that downward spiral, unfortunately. But today's move has been one of the largest moves that we have seen. I'm just looking over trying to work out roughly what the percentage is. Around about 5%. So, yeah. A good move down, still 5 hours to go. We could certainly see some further falling. We're going to have a look at this. Obviously, we are. We're going to have a little bit of the news. I think some of the news may also stem into why it is that we have seen some of the drop. But as I kind of said in Discord, let's try and find the end of the price analysis. Let's try and find some sort of chink in the armor of, I don't know, the bearishness. Let's try and find a ray of hope to actually kind of hold on to, that we can just grab on like a life jacket in these dark, unsettled seas, and ride through however long it's going to take. So I don't want it to be too much of a negative spin. I'm obviously going to say what I see. But if this call is like any other call that I make, generally, whatever I talk about the most, the opposite then tends to happen. So I suppose if I keep it really bearish, we may see a situation. Sorry, I've just seen Adam's message. We may see a situation where we do get to some sort of reversal. And I mean, we'll have a look on the charts in a bit, but at some stage, the sellers have got to get at least a little bit exhausted. So yeah, we'll go through that. Not too many questions to go through tonight. And ideally then, let's try and wrap this up in 60 minutes, because I'll be honest with you, it's hotter than hell in this room. But just going to Adam's point there, I've actually switched off Delta. Delta app for me used to just automatically open on startup. I've taken the time and the effort to go into my settings and disable that from happening. So I don't have to actually visually see the panic that's come along. One thing that I will say is whilst altcoins are down, Bitcoin's certainly down further today than altcoins. So a little bit of a refreshing break there. And we are starting to see that reflected in Bitcoin dominance as well. So we can have a look at where that is going. As always, any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I will certainly get through them. C Maintains talking about Taonu. Funnily enough, that's one of the questions today. So we're going to go over that a little bit later on. And hello to everybody else. But let's just dive straight in, he says, after 3 minutes of talking about nothing. Yeah, you can kind of see where Bitcoin's gone at the moment, unfortunately. We lost that level. We talked about this last week. Where were we last week? I'll try and find it. When we were around about 66,000 on the last call, we were getting close to that line that I talked about, and I'll show you a little bit later on. Fortunately, Thursday comes along, and we get this. I mean, for me, you know, we are in a downwards market. There's high test here, very long wick to the north. It started to fall through, and then obviously we've fallen down, and we have very briefly breached the 60k level today. We have recovered that at the moment. We'll see where it goes. You can kind of see this 60k level. There's a lot of noise, whether they're wicks or bodies in and around that level. We're going to talk about double tops and everything else later on, but it is very significant level here. A loss of that, and really what we're clutching onto, 56.5. And then unfortunately after that, it's this clump down at 52 to 51. So, yeah. Kaz has done strong. Kaz has outperformed very well compared to Bitcoin in the last few weeks. And today has been no different. It is currently just about at zero, maybe slightly in the red. But compared to where some of the other ones are, it is looking good. I've got an entry in mind for me if I can get back into Kaz. It is quite a bit further south than where we currently are, but we'll have a look at that a little bit later on. ETH following Bitcoin. And of all the altcoins, this is one of the, certainly in the top 20, one of the largest fallers. Obviously, people worried about Bitcoin, maybe selling Bitcoin, may also then look to sell Ethereum, it being given as the biggest altcoin. And then we've got Tau. Now, Tau's an interesting one, unfortunately, because today is doing okay. Oops, that's not what I want to do. Today is doing okay, and I would just use the term okay. But as a whole, unfortunately, it is just been, drop after drop after drop. Couple of days of relief here and there, But even this long low test wasn't really enough to turn the markets around. And again, it's the same sentiment. We're in a falling market, and so generally low tests should probably be sort of discounted, I suppose, because it's just going against the overall trend of the market. So the chances of them playing out are not quite as strong. But again, showing some strength today. And then when I look at the right hand side, a lot of sort of the AI related ones, render, near, fetch, have done well today. So I don't know if it's an AI related one or not, but certainly it's showing some strength. That's happy to see. We'll go through those in more detail later. So quickly onto the news, and for those of you that have been under a rock for the last 4 or 5 days, one of the biggest pieces of news, and again, very convenient timing, seeing as this is one of the things we were talking about, not seeing how they can approve an Ethereum ETF when they still can't determine if it's a security or not. Well, on Thursday, we found out that the SEC were dropping all further ongoing investigations regarding Ethereum or Ether as a security. Now, I don't want to dive into who said what and sort of how strong or not so strong their case may be. But Consensus, who are representing Ethereum, shall we say, have come out and effectively said that they've received notice from the SEC. I suppose it will actually be from the judge. I'm not necessarily too sure. That the SEC are no longer taking this case forward, and that no more protestations from the SEC that ETH is a security. By that, I presume they now mean that it is going to be a commodity. But unfortunately, certainly since this article has dropped, and I've not actually been able to see anything myself, we've not seen anything come directly from the SEC. But a positive step forward. I don't necessarily think this was a surprise, given the approval of the 19Bs and also the sort of the moving forward for maybe even as early as next week for the S1s. And therefore the ETS for Ethereum going live. So they are trying to naturally wrap that one up. Now, again, don't want to get caught down the rabbit hole, but what is interesting is the SEC is still out for blood with a lot of other altcoins that they are deeming are securities. So wondering how that's going to pan out over the next couple of months. But right now, what we know is from the SEC standpoint, Ethereum is now safe. So yeah. And I think this had a positive reaction with ETH at the time, but unfortunately, overall market sentiment has reduced those gains. So what's everyone on crypto Twitter talking about at the moment, and why is this leading to the sell-off that we're seeing? Well, Mt. Gox have made an announcement today that finally, 10 years after this whole, I suppose, case or procedure to try and recover these lost and stolen BTC, they have confirmed that as of early July, that's all we've got at the moment, we are going to see BTC and Bitcoin Cash payments being made to creditors. Sorry, I had to think about that in my head then. Now, what value are we talking about? Well, actually, towards the end of end of May, about $9.5 billion worth of BTC was moved from several of the Mt. Gox's wallets over to a cold address, which is where we're assuming the distribution is going to come from. And of course, crypto Twitter being crypto Twitter, everyone's just now assumed that we're going to see a huge amount of sell pressure come into the markets come July, with $19.5 billion worth of Bitcoin being dumped onto the market. And ultimately, yes, okay, let's try and work this through logically. Some of these people have been waiting 10 years to get their BTC back. Within that time, they may have given up completely on cryptos. They may have been stung badly during the early days of Bitcoin and just never really recovered from it financially, emotionally, whatever. So those people, and again, we're just assuming here, may take that money and go, look, what I had was only worth $1,000 before per Bitcoin. Now it's suddenly worth 60,000, maybe less by the time this happens. And so, yeah, they want to take some profit. And okay, we may see some sell pressure, but I think it's fairly naive to assume that 100% of every single person that's going to be receiving their Bitcoins or Bitcoin Cash are going to actually dump that onto the market. So again, I think we've just got to wait and see with that. But the other thing that I've seen repeatedly on crypto Twitter today is Mt. Gox are dumping Bitcoin. And I just don't believe that is necessarily true. As I understand it from reading this and other articles, this won't actually happen until July. So we've got at least a week for that to occur. Yes, I understand that some people want to be paid in different currencies. And I do believe that USDT is one of those. So maybe there is a percentage that will need to be sold prior to that. But again, as the letter has come out and said, all we're seeing payments are at the moment are Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash. Now, I may have misinterpreted the letter and the statement, and then if I have, fair enough, that needs to be changed. But the dumping, the sale, whatever, won't have happened yet. And people can follow the wallets. And I think we need to wait till the end of the days before we can check it. But tomorrow we'll know if movements have happened from that wallet to see whether or not it's gone. But as I understand it, we've still got a week at least until this happens. But I kind of think that anything related to Mt. Gox, it just creates FUD. It just creates nervousness in the market. And I wasn't around in Bitcoin when Mt. Gox went pop, whatever you want to call happen. And so, for me, it was just something that I've learned about, not really experienced. And I think for 95, 97% of all crypto investors, that's probably the case. But they get spooked by it, the term Mt. Gox, and you always see some sort of negative reaction to the market. But much like with Bitcoin obituaries and people saying that Bitcoin is dead, 9 times out of 10, the market recovers regardless of the Mt. Gox FUD. So perhaps that is just what is happening at the moment. I'm not even going to get into market makers maybe trying to take advantage of negative news stories to be able to build their positions for Bitcoin as we go down. And we are going to have a look at some of sort of the liquidation levels and how they've been playing out over the last couple of hours. But yeah, I think there's definitely a case for just a bit of FUD because it's Mt. Gox. Now, I will say that come July, we may see a large amount of sell pressure from the market because people do sell. And if that happens, then that's what's going to happen. We need to see if there are actually buyers willing to buy it. But until July, I'm just going to put this one in the it could happen, but let's not stress about it too much. It's another Mt. Gox, which just talks about exactly the same thing. And then the other thing, I don't know why my computer's suddenly gone so slow. Maybe even crashed. Hopefully you guys are still there, but it does look like my PC has gone and crashed on me. Okay, just bear with me a second. Okay, it may well have crashed. If someone can just tell me in the chat if you can still hear me, I will build a new set of stories as we are going. We'll see what happens from there. Uh-oh. Does look like I might have gone. Okay. Pause. Lost it. Okay, I am hoping we are back, but I'm not actually sure whether or not we are back. Apologies about that if we are. But yeah, good old technical faux pas there as we're going through. Everything now seems to suddenly be working again. So I'm going to crack on and we'll see whether or not anybody tells me that it's not working. So one of the other things, and this is uncanny, but Michael Saylor last week announced that he had gone and found the 800 million that he was looking for to purchase some more Bitcoin. And so he's gone and purchased the Bitcoin. And lo and behold, guess what's happened? Yep, you guessed it. Once again, he has bought the local top and we have seen another fall in Bitcoin's price. Now, it's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing about this because Michael Saylor doesn't care necessarily about what the price is going to be tomorrow, what even the price is going to be in 6 months. he just keeps on buying. MicroStrategy, I should say, keeps on buying, and they will continue to do that, I suppose, until they can't buy any more Bitcoin. But it is just uncanny the amount of times there. And people, as this article goes on to say, try and now use this as a strategy to short Michael Saylor's announcements of purchases from MicroStrategy. And had you have done that, it would have played out very nicely. But ultimately, I don't think that is what has actually caused the price to continue to fall. In fact, what most people are actually associating this to is a minor capitulation. And this was briefly covered in Discord and Telegram today. But what we are potentially seeing is post-halving, a bit of a miner's capitulation as they sort of effectively, the ones that were just riding on the edge of profitability anyway, now struggle to adapt to the reduction in the amount of rewards that are going out there, which then ultimately affects their bottom line. And generally what we see is in periods just after the halving, granted not as long as what they have lasted for at the moment, we see miners give up. And what I mean by give up is not necessarily that they give up, sell their equipment and then sell the company and wind it completely down. I mean, they just switch the mining equipment off until it kind of catches up with itself, and then they can go back to turning it on. And what we are seeing that the hash rate is dropping. We're seeing that the difficulty rate is dropping, which will be interesting because that needs to probably just adjust to reflect the new figure, the new amount of miners that are out there trying to secure the network, etc. But it is something that you can actually follow and track within this. But before we get into that, I just want to touch on what Willy Woo says. So Willy Woo is a macro analyst of Bitcoin. He sticks very much to on-chain data, and he's been quoted a little bit in this. Effectively just says that Bitcoin's price is actually only going to bounce once weak hands have capitulated. What he means by weak hands is the miners. It's not talking about retail there. And then the hash rate that recovers to reflect that. So he sort of came out a couple of days ago, just sort of saying that, look, exactly what I've just said. Now that we have had the halving, we are getting to a point where those that were profitable are struggling to maintain profitability. Some of them are now having to sell their Bitcoins just to effectively make ends meet. And then ultimately what happens, and this is what he's waiting for, is those that then can no longer continue to do it is to effectively walk away. Now, he goes on to have a look at this chart here, which we're looking at the hash ribbons. And okay, it only goes back to the 2016 halving. But the 2016 halving happened in July, and it took effectively 24 days for this period to recover. Over in 2020, it actually only took 8 days. Now, this could be because there was a very unusual circumstance. 2020, everyone was locked in their homes by this time the halving happened. Maybe that helped speed things along. But actually, we're now 61 days past the halving in 2024, and we're still awaiting this minor capitulation to complete itself, for that reversal to take place, and then to move on. But in each of the past halving events that this has occurred, and if you go back to 2012, the data is a little bit sketchier, but it is still shown there. That reversal does occur, and this is quite a known fact. The fact that this has gone on for twice as long as the average, okay, that's fair enough. But it could be argued that this is just because of where the price of Bitcoin currently is at the moment, and that large move up that we've had with the bolstering of the ETFs has meant that people's reserve banks, if you will, the sort of the savings that are in the company to allow them to stay afloat for a little bit longer, has just elongated this time period. But yeah, so it's an interesting way at looking at it. But if you actually go on to have a look at, I've done it on look into Bitcoin because I'm not paying the 70 or 700 pound a month for the Glassnode subscription. But there's a thing called the hash ribbons indicator. Now, this is used to try and identify when Bitcoin miners are capitulating, when they are in distress, when they're struggling to sort of cover the costs of maintaining the rigs, etc. And it's represented here. Now, unfortunately, the hash ribbons indicator on this chart only goes back to 2019, which doesn't really help us because it's only doing one full cycle beforehand in 2020. But I have got an indicator on TradingView, which we'll have a look at in the moment. Now, effectively, all this is doing, the black line is price. The pink vertical lines are areas in which there is a confirmed capitulation, if you will. And what we want to be paying attention to is the blue and the purple, I suppose, lines. The blue line is the 30-day moving average, price that is, and the purple line is a 60-day moving average. And all this indicator is doing is effectively utilizing those two indicators to give us a rough idea where we're going. And it sort of says here how to interpret the hash ribbons. So if the 30 moving average drops below the 60, hash rate declines and miners capitulate. So that's what the dark pink area is. Sorry. The 30 moving average moves back above the 60 daily moving average, highlights that miners are capitulating, is coming towards the end. So it's a light pink period. But once we have the reversal, the crossover between the 30 and the 60 and price increasing, effectively removes any color of pink, whether it be light or dark, and returns it to white. And what this says is that is when the buy signal is presented on the charts if you were to follow that strategy. I didn't show it on this one very well, but if I just go into trading view here, not that one, or that one, okay, let's just build this from scratch. Sorry, just a second. Here we go, is it this one? Yes. So this is on the weekly charts here. So what you can see at the moment is it is showing the 30 and the 60, but it's just representing this in a green or a red situation. So where the 30 has crossed below the 60 is where it starts to look red, and you can see it's red. And unfortunately, the coloring's pretty poor here, but I can assure you that where these green circles are, the wording underneath it is capitulation. So that's a period of capitulation, which just so happened to coincide with April. Well, it's start of May for this, but April's when the halving happened, so that's what we're looking to see. We go back to 2020. Oops, we go back to 2020. And here we go. There's the halving. We can see we went straight into that red period there. And once price then climbed back up, you get that buy signal. So there's that period there. And then ultimately, if we go back to 2016, there's the halving. You can see again. You can't because it's in the way. The red period. Every time I try and get close to it, you're going to get something in the way of it. Capitulation zone as the miners adjust to their newfound restriction or reduction in rewards. And then once that price goes back in, we see it start to climb back up. And actually in 2012, it happened late in 2012, it was in November. But again, you can see exactly the same situation. We had that period of redness, and then we were just waited when the price crossed over. I'm on the linear, I think, here. So it just looks like a flat line. But once it does start to go up, we get that buy signal. So that's what people are saying is we've got the miners struggling at the moment. They're having to sell. What we really now need to see is for this to stabilize. Once they have stabilized, and those that no longer can afford to do it, whatever, walk away from it, we will then start to see the market recover. Hash rate will increase because the difficulty will drop temporarily just to make it easier for those that are there to then provide the computational power. And I think the difficulty is assessed it's like every 2 weeks. It's like every 2,000 blocks, and each block's 10 minutes, so it's roughly 2 weeks. So it's a bit of a lagging indicator there. But all we really want to do is just wait for the blue, and then that's kind of showing us the ideal opportunity to buy. And if you have a look at all these periods where it does go to buy after the halving, look what happens. Price shoots up. I'm going to have to put this on logarithmic now, or we're never going to get it to happen. Sorry, there we go. I've lost it now. Come on. That's what happens when you mess around with your charts after your sets. But again, minor capitulation, we get the buy signal, bull run. Minor capitulation, get the buy signal. Technically, this one happened a little bit before, bull run. So maybe I should have saved this for the end. Maybe that's our knight in shining armor. But what I suppose I'm just trying to say is price dropping like this, miners selling like this, it's not a new thing for this cycle. So don't let anyone try and convince you that this cycle is different and this is now the end of Bitcoin, because actually we've seen this before. And we have just dipped below 60,000 again. So that's kind of covering the news, and I've kind of moved into start of the analysis of Bitcoin. I think we'll just leave hash ribbons there. I've said this many times before. I'm not really someone that naturally follows on-chain analytics because I think it's just a lagging indicator. And unfortunately for me, certainly in my eyes, more often than not, it always seems to be positive, which is great in the bull market. But even in the bear market, it's like you're halfway through the bear market before things suddenly start to turn around. So by all means, stick this indicator on there, and when you see the blue buy signal, maybe it's time to go again. But just remember, altcoins may lag behind. So this is more for Bitcoin, if that's what you're going to have a look at. But let's have a look at Bitcoin's price. This chart's on the weekly at the moment, but this is what we've seen week on week. I suppose I can get rid of this zone now. I'll delete it from last week. And we have lost that level. So last week when we did this, I'll put it on the daily actually, we were flirting around. So last Tuesday, this is where we were. We touched that level, we bounced back up. So we had that reaction. And then look what's happened. A couple of days afterwards, price has rallied up. It's hit the 50 again. It's been rejected hard. We've got that high test, and then we've lost it. And then that's what's happened, and we've fallen down through. And unfortunately, what I'm showing you on this chart, this line doesn't give me an area where it might catch itself. We're going to have to use other analysis for that. But we have seen in the past that it has previously lost it before, but it doesn't mean it's necessarily the end of the world. But unfortunately, as it stands right now, I say unfortunately, if you're looking to get more Bitcoin, this is perfect. We have lost it, and we're just waiting to see at what level we may be able to turn this around. Now, I don't know what order things are in here for me to talk about. I'll come on to liquidations later, so let's just have a little talk about some of the other things we're seeing. I might be duplicating charts here, but it doesn't matter. So just going on to a clean chart of Bitcoin at the moment. We are all looking pretty good there. What was the name of that indicator? It was just the hash ribbons. So if you just go into indicators, just type in hash ribbons. And I just clicked on the top one. It's got 13,822 people using it. Seemed like the good one to use. If you want to go on to look onto Bitcoin, it's just got its own section. But the data only goes back to 2019, as I said. But it does give you a nice understanding of how it worked and who created it, etc. Okay. So yeah, so we've got the chart up at the moment, blank chart here, throw on a 50 EMA just so we can talk about that as we're going. Just, okay. Right, so there's a 50 EMA. So this is generally what we're looking at. But let's throw our typical fibs on. The one we've been doing has been from effectively ETF up to the high and back. Oops, a bit too high there. And I mean, it's uncanny where this is right now, but we're right on this level. Okay, we have just gone and lost it ever so slightly, but we are battling with the 382 at the moment, currently at 60,281. If you're going to go body to body like I have. And I know, really, I probably could just leave this on the screen and just go away for 5 minutes. And this is kind of all we really need to know from the big picture, certainly in the way that I have a look at the charts, because we've talked about whether or not 60K was going to be the level. And if we lose 60K, we've talked about that 57, 56.5K. And well, that kind of ties in with where this is at the moment. Obviously, it's this dip down here in the price action, which also just happens to coincide with the 0.05. And then the golden ratio, the 618 itself, is right at this shoulder here, the 52 level. So the three levels that we've got in front of us, one of them we are at the moment. And of course, as currently as it stands, we are through it, but we'll have to wait and see how today closes. That's all I'm really looking at for Bitcoin. And I accept we may have to look at lower levels, but right now there's three levels presented to me: 60, 56.5, and 52,000. They're the ones that I'm going to have a look at. They're the ones that are tying in with the Fibonacci levels. They're the ones that are tying in with price action. And when we do have a look at sort of liquidation levels, etc., you'll see certainly moving towards the 57,000, maybe not the 52. Well, actually, no, even the 52. That is where areas of long liquidations can be found. So if I'm just trying to just sort of land down on this, not complicate too many things, they're just the levels that I'm looking at. How that's going to reflect on altcoins, we don't really know, because as we'll talk about later, Bitcoin dominance is falling at the moment, which suggests that whilst Bitcoin is falling, altcoins aren't falling as fast. Now, we just could have sellers exhaustion from altcoins, because let's face it, over the last sort of, I mean, I was going to say 30 days, but maybe even longer, we have seen some pretty painful pullbacks on the altcoins. But as it stands at the moment, just looking at Bitcoin, they're the levels that I'm going to be looking at. And then I'll take off the fibs, but just remember those levels. then we want, what everyone is now talking about. And whether we do it on the weekly or the daily, we'll do it on the daily first, is potentially a double top here. Now, why have I not connected it? I've not connected it because I don't really know where to form the neckline, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. Potentially, we could form it up here and suggest that it actually has already broken around about 61,000. And, there we are starting to see that we may be now having that follow through. Or it could be where we are now with all these wicks lining up, etc. Around about 60,000. And we're currently experiencing it breaching the neckline, but having that battle with it as we speak. Or there's that third one, which is right down here at around about 57,000, which does actually take in this wick and this dip all the way down, which certainly looks cleaner. But the reality is that we just can't tell at the moment. And I think it's worth, if you're going to have a look at, sort of the full extent of a move from a double top, is to just have these three levels on there. Now, if today it goes all the way down here and closes, then okay, we could probably rule out the other two. But if it doesn't, and it starts to meander in and around here for a little bit, bouncing between these two lines, then, we still don't really know. Now, I would dare say that it doesn't necessarily make too much of a difference in how far it could go. We go basically from the top to the neckline. So that'd be the first one. Top to the neckline would be the second one. I will move these in a second. Top. This isn't the most accurate to the neckline. So if we were talking about 61,000 being the neckline breach, and how far could it go down? Okay. We're already looking at 50K. If we're looking at the one below that one, to the neckline, actually now we're looking at 47K. That's tying in with this price action from the beginning. Sort of do you remember at the beginning of January, we had the ETFs were confirmed to be going ahead, Bitcoin ETFs. But the day before we had that fake news, the SEC, some intern in the SEC office put out a communication. That's what caused this movement up. So that's taken us down to that shoulder there, 47,000. And then if it is this really big one, well, that's kind of, I don't want to talk about it, level 40,000 down there. And again, unfortunately, it does tie in with some price action there, but that one would certainly hurt. So unfortunately, with any kind of TA, it's only worth its salt once it's actually happened. We can have a look at potential scenarios, but of course, nothing's going to stop it from just going bang and off, So as much as we may think this double top is going to play out, it may not. There may be things that drive it going the other way. And actually what we could see, when people thought we were going to lose this here, is just some sort of move up. Maybe we form a triple top. I'm not saying that's particularly a good case for us, but hey, that could be what happens. So I always tend to have a look at, when I'm at levels like this, is what's the point of doing anything until I get confirmation of which way it's going? Because the risk to reward just doesn't seem to stack up with me. I've kind of missed the opportunity when I'm right on here. I might as well wait to see what happens. If we lose a level, probably get a Kobo, and then we can maybe look to see about it going down. So maybe whether that's you placing a short or just trying to get out of a position. But likewise, we may just see it bounce from here. Had I to sell, I may end up regretting it. So I just kind of sit. I'm not selling my Bitcoin regardless. We get down to 40,000, I might have to reevaluate that. I accept. But if we put it on, well, oh, sorry, that's what people were showing me. Is they were like, well, we've already had a double top. We've had this and this with the neckline. And so this is actually now played out. And I get it. But as I mentioned to you last week, it's just double top inception. It's double top's been double top. So yes, that one on the daily has played out. But I'd then move this to the weekly chart. I'd clean it up first. And we looked at the weekly chart. This one still looks pretty good. So whilst that double top on the daily may play out to take us to this, all that's ended up doing is just helping us form this, final leg down on the double top on the weekly chart. So yeah, I just have to take that one ultimately with a bit of a pinch of salt to see where we are going. Now, what is interesting on the weekly is having a look at some of these levels, is if the 61,000 level that we talked about was it, we said that it would take us down to 50. Just above 50. Well, look where the 50 EMA on the weekly is. That's a strong level. Oops. This entire bull run, this entire recovery, since the bottom in November 22. And when we finally crossed it in March of 23, okay, we did dip below it, but we really didn't deviate from it too much. It held us quite nicely, and then away we went. So, it is showing strong supports, particularly in bull markets. We even saw that with the correction over in April of 21 when we came down. It was a 50 EMA that ultimately ended up catching us, takes us to an all-time high. Yes, we lost it in the bear market to a bit of a dead cat bounce, and away we went. But that is a strong level to have a look at. We want to move on to liquidation levels now. And what was that original chart I was on? There. Sorry, it's just loading up. Okay. This is on the weekly. You can see, let's put it on the daily. So we can kind of see we've got the 72 and the 74, and then we've got 55 and 56 at the moment. There is this level down here, but we've got this one to get through first, but that's from 50 to 52,000. Now, I don't know what Highblock's done, but I really don't like the new UI. So each time I go onto this, I have to build it from scratch, which is a bit annoying, but you just have to bear with me. Heat maps, liquidations, BTC, select all. Let's look at the time frame. Let's go for 1 month at the moment. Let's build it here, and then I have to enlarge this. So what can we see that's happened? And the thing is, I can't drag to zoom it in anymore. It's just stuck like this. So not the cleanest. But what we had seen is since the 19th, so only a week, we started to see that this level at around 65,000 started to build up as some real degen short, so real degen longs were being put here. You think about the liquidation level being so close to where the price was. So the price was around about what? I'm trying to interpret this. Just under 64,000. And so the heat map was kind of showing that the liquidation levels was around about 62,500. So, I mean, we're only talking $1,500 away from that. But it built up and built up over the weekend. And then today we've gone ripped through it. So we've come back down, we've taken those out, and we continue to just clear this noise here. And where's the next real build-up of noise? It is around that 55 level. Yes, okay, we've got some back up at 70, maybe some at 67. But at the moment, we are much closer to that 55 than we are to the 67. So if we go back to this one here, that 55 level building up there. Now, I've gone on to CoinGlass because I think it's potentially a little bit easier to have a look at the liquidation map. And it's a shame that the computer crashed, because when I loaded this up a few hours ago, we hadn't dropped below 60,000. And so we had loads of spikes up here. And all I was going to do was refresh it, and you could see. So now with this gap has formed to the left-hand side of the red line, and that's because price has dipped down below 60,000. And we can kind of see, where did we get it down to? Oh, well, these are probably just recently reformed. As the price has gone up there. But I think we got down to about 59,700. We certainly didn't get down, I would say, to below 59,700, just with the amount of volume that there is here. Now, don't worry too much about the colors. The colors represent Binance, OKX, and Bybit. What I'm interested in, this is red line. And this is the cumulative long liquidation leverage. So anything to the left-hand side of current price is long liquidation, because the price is going away from where they thought it was going to go to. And you can kind of see as it builds up, if we get down to the bottom of 59,000, we're talking about $340 million worth. We've still got quite a decent amount building up here. It's nearly $600 million worth just down at 58,500. But if we get down to that 56,700, that's nearly $750 million that could end up being lost there. And there's quite a decent amount that's actually built up. Again, this was relatively quiet a couple of hours ago. So people are obviously starting to fill their positions here. But we can go all the way down to 53,000, which unfortunately is slightly above where Highblock is showing us information at the moment. But to be honest with you, I don't know if adjusting this is going to help. Maybe it does. No, it doesn't, unfortunately. So let's just go back to the day. But what is interesting is look at the amount of short liquidation levels. Yeah, so you see the red line kind of just filters off below the 5 million. Well, it's the 1 billion, so we're taking it from this side. But look at this, it's 1 billion versus 4 billion. So it's almost 4 to 1, which again, for any of you that follow market makers, kind of suggests at the moment that the delta's in the wrong kind of ratio. Okay, the levels may not be significantly enough to demand an immediate reversal, but people are starting to get a bit too fearful, and maybe it is time for a bit of a bloody nose, and we see some sort of reversal, no matter how short-lived. But we only have to get to, look, we get to 62,000, which we were at yesterday. Matter of fact, we might have even been at this morning. It's 1.26 billion wiped out. We start to get to maybe 63 and a half. That's 2.7 billion. And we only have to get to 67. I say only. That's only where we were a week ago. We only have to get to 67,000. And that's 4 billion gone. So certainly some tasty targets there for market makers to have a run at and potentially have a go at as well. The final thing that I really want to say about Bitcoin, before we move into maybe some other rays of light, what this chart is showing, don't need that one right now, is the ETFs. So ETFs have been on a bit of a net outflow for the last 2 weeks. So we have a look all the way back to the 10th of June, which is 2 weeks ago today. And I did the maths beforehand, so don't worry about it too much. But when you add up this column on the right-hand side, you take into account the 100 of net inflows, we're still talking about $1.1 billion worth of net outflows over the last 2 weeks from ETFs. So we can't deny that there's definitely still a lot of selling that is going on. But who's the biggest seller during that period? Well, actually, it's Grayscale. Grayscale, who we know love to sell anyway. They've been clearing their position for a very long time. But what I find very interesting is over that entire period, granted they're not buying much, but BlackRock haven't sold anything. BlackRock aren't selling. They're now the largest holder of Bitcoin out of all of the ETFs. They've overtaken Grayscale. And even with all of the selling that's been going on, and of course today's hasn't printed and I can be proved wrong in only a matter of hours, BlackRock are refusing to sell. They're still buying on. They know something. So, we can see why price has been hindered, because $1.1 billion worth of sales happening from ETFs is going to have a knock-on effect with confidence in the market as well. And there isn't particularly a buyer, whereas normally BlackRock are quite willing to indulge in picking up anything that people are trying to sell. We can only see a few of the days, but look at this one day here on the 6th of June. They were buying $350 million worth, and they easily ate all of what everybody was selling and then some. So yeah, it just goes to show. Now, again, this could be totally ruined today when we find out that BlackRock have sold everything. But just looking on what we can see, I find some sort of solace, at least, that yes, we are going to see ebbs and flows within the ETF, but the big boy, who and Grayscale are always selling, so we can't really use them. But we know BlackRock, they love it, they invested in it, and they ain't selling. So their clients are quite happy. They're with whatever they've been told by their managers, etc. They seem pretty happy with to maintain their positions. And okay, they're not adding to it. We've had, in the last week they put 1.5 million. Bank holiday was on the 19th of June. That's why it's blank. But yeah, I don't think this one's going to show us anything new. Not really. It's just ETF data. Again, but just set out a bit differently. You can only see the BlackRock is the biggest. Okay. So what do we have to look forward to, I suppose? Where can we find any sort of solace? And yep, okay, I drew on the fibs earlier. For those of you that didn't see it. Oh, let's be adjusted. There's definitely areas where we may see it bouncing. Okay, fine. Get rid of that though. There are other things that we can look at. Now, one thing that someone pointed out to me earlier on was, we got this fall in compression. All I'd say about that fall in compression is that's negated, in my opinion now. Yes, we had that. I don't know where you want to draw it from. You can draw it from there, but look, it has lost that. Now, someone could argue, oh yeah, okay, I get it, but we could maybe find drawing some line there. And if that works for you, go for it. For me, though, that fall in compression has been negated, so I'm not necessarily relying on that anymore. But if we look at it maybe on the weekly is probably going to be a little bit cleaner. I have some bad news on the weekly first, but until we lose, like we've still got some sort of level there. Oops, that's not worked. And some sort of level there. Now, we are pretty close to this, and we still have a fair few days left on the weekly. But at the moment, this is still within this range, and this is still, I would argue, a bull flag. Now, until we, close a body below this level, and then I'm sure I'll be able to redraw the line anyway. We're still moving that way. And what do we see in a bull flag? That movement up and down in the range, but as it is, and then we see the burst out. And unfortunately, that could be another 4 or 5 weeks away because we're on the weekly chart here. But there is still that to give us some sort of hope. Now, the only thing that I said, a little bit of bad news when you look at the weekly, for me, is we had this top here. We then formed a low, then another lower high. And if this one closes where it is another lower low. You could argue we are definitely in the downtrend. But as I just showed you on the bull flag, you kind of need the downtrend. And it's about having that positive momentum to take that one through. So certainly that to have a look at. I think with the daily, we've explored the double tops, and I do think maybe there is some temporary bearishness that we can see. But what I do like to see, and I'll be honest, is the fear and greed. Now, this is based on yesterday's. It was already at 49. I think today we're going to probably see that push down to maybe even the low 40s. The reason I'm not showing you it on the alternate.me is because that one just seems to be broken. But this is good. This is what we want to see in terms of an actual flush out here. It's what we want to see for the market to really get sort of nervous and reshaken up. And I am starting to see a lot more negative sentiment on social media. I'm not quite saying, I actually did check the Bitcoin obituaries today to see if we actually had any Bitcoins dead. I don't think we're quite at that stage. But people aren't talking about Lambos anymore. People are talking about survival. People are talking about, trying to find an opportunity to exit the market and buy back in, or to find some money somewhere to buy the dip, etc. It feels like even those that are positive are accepting that price is going to get down, and they just want to try and take advantage of that. And I dare say that is overall a positive sign. I don't believe we're in a bear market. And so these kind of pullbacks, I feel like just the way sentiment is, the way price action is, there is a very good chance then that we are getting close to that bottoming indicator, even if it's just based off sentiment. And I would say, drawing parallels to the pullback in April of 2021, the fear and greed index, when we dropped through in May, that went all the way down to I think it was an 8. So, it's good that we are the left-hand side of the indicator. We're getting closer to fear. That's what I want us to feel. That's where I want us to be. And then obviously where we can go forward from that, we'll have to wait and see. Now, where can I find some light at the end of the tunnel? I think going back to the miners situation, I think that is potentially some light at the end of the tunnel, in that this is a repeating pattern. The gotcha in that is definitely going to be Mt. Gox and what people decide to do with that. And I don't know what they're going to decide to do with it. I don't know anyone that's getting any rewards from it, because I wasn't in the I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Wasn't in the space when that happened. But that's just something we're just going to have to ride out and have a look. What I would say though is, next month we still have the Ethereum ETF that's supposedly launching. I'm hoping that there's some interest within that. I think that'll be a real acid test on how confident institutions are with the altcoin market. And we see some pickup within that. But again, look at this. This is 3 pretty strong weekly candles closing in the red in a row. We're going to get some sort of relief from this, the bounce that's going to come from it. Sellers are going to get exhausted. That doesn't guarantee that we're going to see new all-time highs. I completely accept that. But I also feel that we are going to get some sort of relief rally. So am I looking to buy? I mean, this is sod's law. I have a direct debit that I buy Bitcoin at the beginning of every single month. I'm kind of thinking of actually just bringing that forward and just accepting that I really like the price of where Bitcoin is at the moment. Just because if I wait a week, I know what's going to happen. I'll end up having to buy it at 64,000 or something stupid like that. So that's my point, is I'm trying to take advantage of buying at these levels. I feel like I've waited long enough, especially with some of the altcoins that I've sidestepped, which we'll talk about in a moment. and maybe take advantage of trying to buy as we're going through. So short term, yep, okay, we may see some more falling. As I mentioned before, levels I'm looking at 58, 57, and then not worst case because we could go lower. But the first one, the first real big one that I'm looking at is that 52 to 50,000 level. This little nib here from February of this year, and that feels like that's going to close that one out quite nicely, if that were the case. Let's move on to the questions and let's move on to altcoins. I don't think there's anything that's in chat at the moment. So the only one that I've been asked about is from Azam is how do I feel about Talnu by the end of 2024? I'm not sure if someone's trying to get me into trouble here, but I've kind of given my views on Talnu and Zappy before. I'm not there. I'll be honest. What I will say, so last week I talked about transactions, and in a 24-hour period, we were talking about 1 to 3 transactions happening. We got 27 at the moment. I still don't think that's massive for a meme coin, but it is at least trying to show some sort of volume. I think we're getting close. If this price was a drop by 50% again, that's the level that I originally got in at. So we are getting back to levels, which is definitely very appealing. But for me, with Talnu or with Zappy, I just think that the majority of the market is within our community. So if I'm going to get in on these, I don't think I'm playing against the market. I'm literally playing against our group sentiment. And you know, ultimately, I'm going to have to fight, move. Someone sold. Hopefully that's not just on my analysis there. But ultimately, I'll just be, you know, battling my exit liquidity with people within the group as well in a project that I don't really care about. It's only a meme coin. It's got some links to Tau, which is great, but I'm just not that bothered about it. I don't really have too many meme coins as it is. There's not many that I'm really eyeing up. So I'm kind of at the point where I got in early enough and I got out. Now I just hope that it goes flying for you guys. Do I think it's going to get to $1 in 2025? No, absolutely not. Do I think it's going to represent, you know, 1% of Tau's overall market cap? No, I don't. I just don't think it's there. Now, I didn't know this, but if you use Dex Screener and you run along here, it's quite interesting. You see these little symbols. You got like a whale's tail, and it'll say, look, whale, over 10K it's bought or sold, and how long they've been a holder for. You actually kind of have a look at some of these whale wallets here, which is quite interesting to see, just because when you then go to have a look at other tokens with, you know, real high interest, with, you know, higher market caps and, you know, greater 24-hour volume, you can kind of see that there's a, you know, lot bigger commitments, etc. from that. So I don't know how accurate that little symbol is as well, I should say, but it's just interesting to have a look at those. So this whale here, I mean, this whale here has had it for at least 30 days. I don't know if that's the limit it does, because it always seems to be. I've never seen anyone hide in 30 days. But I suppose someone who's held on to this for 30 days is a positive position to be in. Now, in terms of the actual price, it's just, you know, since launching on Mexi, which was back here, I think, you know, it's just had repeated battering. Now, worse, it's like launching in the height of a new token, new project in the height of the bear market. Worst possible time. Since this has launched, the altcoins have actually done nothing. Sorry, end of 24, where do you think it'll get to? End of 2024. So if we have some sort of, the problem is with this is, what can I say? The problem is what I see on this side here. Okay, it doesn't have the transactional volume, doesn't have the interest for me to really be able to determine where it's going to go. And what do I mean by that is there's only been 28 transactions in the last 24 hours. If one whale was to come in and buy $50,000 worth, the price is going to skyrocket up, because it's just, you know, they're going to have to eat with the order book to try and fill that. But if they go and then sell it a month later, again, because there doesn't seem to be any organic, natural kind of buying and selling this token, it's just going to crash it back down as he has to eat the sell order book just to sell his position. So I think this can be very easily manipulated at the moment by one or two whales moving the price around. The other thing for me is it hasn't caught fire like a lot of other meme coins have. I don't see anybody talking about it like I see them talking about MPC or Brett or Pepe back in the day, and, you know, all of those ones. So to catch it, I don't know. So where could it get to? Hey, if the market turns around and we start to see altcoins fly, and this picks up a good narrative. Maybe we do get a 10x. Maybe we do get it to roughly all-time highs from where it is at the moment, which is a great position for it to be in if you're buying in now. If you're already in and you're in at quite a high level, that might be the case. But with meme coins, for me, it's very hard to predict where it's going to go, because I think it's all about the narrative. It's all about you actually catching the attention of people. And I just don't think this one has yet. I think whoever is running it really needs to shill it, really needs to get it out there. The social medias need to be completely in your face, because people aren't buying it for the tech because it's a meme coin. They're buying it because of the meme ability. And I just don't see where that is. Zappy's kind of the same, because at least Tau New holds the Tau in its name, whereas Zappy, not so much. And again, we've had some big sell-off today. We have had 28 transactions. Interestingly, the price has dropped quite significantly today. We've had more buys than sells, but the selling volume has been twice as much. And it's down 35% in the last 24 hours, which again, small market caps are great, but I just think this one is ultimately going to struggle as well. I think, again, this needs to be in your face. If I was running this and trying to build it up, I'd be trying to get influencers or whatever to just start talking about it. I'd be going on through Twitter, and any person that had a decent sized following that then puts out those tweets, want to get into meme coins, which one should I buy? I'd be spamming it with Zappy in the hope that someone takes some interest in it. Because I think that's really the only way a lot of these are going to actually catch fire. But hey, if they do, then the sky's the limit on where they can go. And you look at things, if we look at Brett, for example. Oops. Brett's in the top 60. But if you have a look at it, where were we before? 0.2. So in the last 30 days, I actually think that this is right. But hey, maybe it was. I thought it must have been around longer, because it must just be before. This is when Coinbase picked it up. Well, not Coinbase, CoinMarketCap. But yeah, this used to have like fair few noughts in front of it, and it's got to 13 cents already. Let's have a look and find it on Dex Screener. I'm sure I saw it up here a second ago. No, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong with that. But this one has at least caught some interest in terms of positive movement up. But over this last month, it's still struggling as well. But yeah, sorry, that's just honestly where I think it is. I think I've been fairly consistent on my views on that. And I hope it turns around for all of you guys in next. I know our group is relatively heavy into it. My only worry with that is when it is selling time. If there isn't more than what you see in terms of transactions for Taunia and Zappy, this is going to be like rebasing DAOs all over again. It's going to be first person to get to hit the sell button. It's going to benefit from it. Anyone else that sells afterwards, if you've got a decent size amount, you're going to struggle. So yeah, that's where I am with that. Let's just have a look at altcoins. We might as well talk about Tau whilst we're here. So this is what I've been following for a while. This is Tau on the daily. You kind of know that I have been out of the market with my Tau. I didn't sell everything when I sold. I sold about 55%. And I have been buying back in. So I actually bought at 370. I bought at 330 roughly. I bought at 300, and I bought last night at 270. And I've been buying those because at the time they seemed like levels that made sense in terms of where price action was. I'm still not fully back in because I don't know where this is necessarily going, but I just see it's reacting down here. And 270 seemed like a logical place to buy because from what I've been tracking and how I've been following this is a line which it has reacted from before. It may not be, may not see it climb all the way to the top, but even if I did get to the top of this channel, we're still talking about the levels which I got out at higher. So I'm going to just see how this one plays out. But for me, that is where I have been running this one from. Those that I have bought, I've just sent to be staked straight away. I'm not really messing around with it. This is, a project that I do believe in, and I'm glad that Simon Artie have launched that subnet alpha, because the one thing that has been missing for me is actually understanding about the subnets. I just, been too lazy, or it's just too much to keep my head in. At least this now gives me an opportunity, or a lack of an excuse, not to research this a little bit better. So, add it to your saves. I think it's, I can't speak for the quality of the information that's in there, is how up to date it is. I've got no reason to believe that it isn't as up to date as they can make it. But ultimately, it's only going to be as good as everyone contributing towards this one. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a good thing, and I'm going to try and spend next couple of weeks running through those. But the only thing right now is the one level I was looking at was 280. We've kind of lost that, and all that we've now got left to maybe recover is this down here. It's sort of 217, and then we're starting to talk about what some of us have been talking about in the group. Can this get down to 200? What's the absolute worst place it could go down to? And unfortunately, there's some vector candles down here. There's some other levels in which it may get to, and if you were to lose this 200 level, and I got caught out on this last time, trust me. Where's the next bit of noise? 130, maybe down at 100 itself. Absolutely possible. Do I think it's going to go there? Let's just say I hope it doesn't, because I will be back in the market well before then. I am going to see whether or not we get to see this sort of 220 level to have a sort of move back down. But yeah, if we get down to 100, I'll already be back in, and I'll be trying to find something else. But I can't imagine what the rest of this altcoin market is going to be like if that is the case. But yeah, this feels like a good level. Again, its strength that is shown today maybe suggests that this is a good buy position. It's not just me that thought 270 is a quality level for which to buy back in at, as we are starting to see strength from other people. So I'm happy with what I've seen. Not so happy with some of the other ones, like Polkadot, unfortunately, which again, sorry, just go back onto Tau. One of the things that I did notice today, I'll just clear all this up. Matter of fact, let's just turn some of this stuff off as well. Don't need it. Look at this. You put it on the 3-day chart, and we have had 7 red candles in a row. Again, it kind of feels like we've got to be at the point of exhaustion here. 7 red in a row. I can't think of a time where we did see 7 down here before we saw that rally back up. Only 6 there. But yeah, pretty rare to see 7 in a row, 6 there again. So, no guarantee that it is going to turn around, I accept. But when you just have a look at it from that point of view, 21 days, 3 weeks of effectively solid falling. And to be perfectly honest with you, it was only 3 days worth of moving from 380 to 395. So not, if we're talking about a 5% move before we then had another week and a half of solid falling. So, kind of been pretty much the last 30 days, just solid falling for Tau. Yes, they had the hack, which won't have helped. Yes, the market hasn't been great, but there's no way of just putting a number on that value, but it's just more of a feeling that it feels like at some stage we're going to get some sort of relief. May not last forever, but when you look at it like that, it does feel like we need to have some sort of bounce. Maybe we just get it back to 330 and it starts to have a look at some of these 10, maybe up at the 370 for the 20 EMA. I think where is the 50? Is at 410. So yeah. Other ones, Glimmer not looking good. Link, again, on the 3-day, Link has had a shocker. And, don't think I'm Mr. Omnipotent, because I decided to get back into Link because I just see where it could get to the end of this market. And I was buying in at the $17 range, and look what's going to happen. Now, this 200 EMA on the 3-day, been pretty good bounce level before. Maybe we've had the exhaustion, too much selling, we get to see that. But I did not time my exit, also my re-entry back into this very well, much like when I didn't time my exit out of it very well. So Link is a bit of my boogeyman. Not sold it. I'm going to try and add to it. See where we go. Near, seen a bit of life over the last week as it came back down. I promised everyone that I was speaking to that if it got below $5, I'd buy it. I'd sell some of my DOT to buy it. I never did. Guess what? Went all the way down to 450. So didn't stick to that one. I did load up Kraken to sell some of my stake dot. I just never, I don't know why I didn't pull the trigger. I must have got sidetracked. Render again, just falling back down. This is just generally altcoins, unfortunately, are falling away. And now I said I was going to talk to you about CAS because people know I've not been the biggest fan of Casper in terms of technicals and fundamentals. And, I think it's potentially falling into a narrative, payments, which may not be the best. But what I will say is it has defied a lot of the other altcoins that are out there, and it had showed some real strength. And ultimately, I'm in crypto to try and make some money, and I would be foolish to just ignore that. And I kind of see, it's snaking up at the moment. It's still doing higher highs and higher lows, and we've got some sort of level there. Now, is the 3-day the best one to look at? I can't remember what I looked at it on before. Maybe it was the daily. Was it the daily? That doesn't look right. Sorry here. I'm sure I saw a nice little channel somewhere. I obviously didn't. I'm just making this up. But ultimately, I'm looking at this bottom bit here. Now, I may not ever get that opportunity to, but if I was to see Casper come back down here in around the 13-12 cents level, still forming a higher low, then I will be putting a decent amount into Casper. I'll accept where it was. Now, I got out at 12 cents a while back, and I've watched it go all the way up to almost 20 cents and come back down. And to be honest with you, when we're looking on the weekly, it's still forming an upward trend, showing real strength while the others aren't. This feels like there is definite momentum from a price point of view for this to move up and for this to do well. And so I can't ignore that, particularly as a group, we talk about Casper quite a lot. It is in my face. And ultimately, I'm here to try and make money. Now, I could be the curse that sends this lower. And if I am, I apologize for that. But it is one that is looking interesting to me. I have seen that Bitcoin's fallen a bit further over the last few minutes. Almost at 6% down on the day. So, yeah. But yeah, that's certainly where I'm looking at. I'm liking the strength. I think I started to talk about that last week. So don't be surprised if at some stage I kind of announce that I have bought some back. These are the levels I'm kind of looking at. I might be looking to be a bit greedy, but that's where I'd like it to go to, forming that low, that higher low, and then moving back up. Is there anything else really to talk about? We're going to talk about Bitcoin dominance. So, and maybe we'll have a look at the dollar as well. So yeah, so this has been interesting today on the weekly. Let's just change that. But we have seen, throughout the last 18 months or so, Bitcoin dominance climbing away. And we got as high a couple of days ago as 56 and a bit percent. And now we're already down 2%, and a hell of a drop today, almost an entire percent on the way down. We're getting towards 200 EMA, which again, may present itself as an ideal opportunity for it to bounce. So we do need to monitor where that's going. And I don't think this is necessarily a signal that we are having that shift from Bitcoin to altcoins, not yet. For me, probably need to lose, I was going to say 50, but let's try and get a bit more of an accurate figure. Actually, I probably would say 50. I think we'd like to take this low out here, maybe actually drop below 200 EMA on the dominance for the 50, see where it goes. Now, interestingly, on the weekly, this is right smack on the 20 EMA. And before, we have fallen to it, but we've always had a strong bounce. And my gut feeling is saying to me at the moment, yes, altcoins have done well today. I just wonder whether or not they're going to see the rest of the week out doing so well. And is it just more of a case of Bitcoin's first to move? And we may see that altcoins will ultimately follow after that. That's something we're just going to have to monitor and have a watch. In terms of the dollar, I mean, there's nothing really for me at the moment to say that the dollar is going to reverse, certainly from what we're seeing here. There's some sort of trend line of some sorts coming up here. It's on the weekly. It's not the cleanest, I accept. Maybe you could argue there's something there as well. So we are within that. I mean, at some stage, we're going to be back to risk on, and we'll ultimately see the dollar fall and the rest of the traditional markets and crypto hopefully move to rally. But the rest of the markets are not having too bad a time. S&P doing pretty well. Despite the dollar rallying hard, the S&P is still rallying very hard. I don't have the Nasdaq on this chart, on this set of portfolios. Have a look. That's not what I'm meant to do. Nasdaq. I mean, the Nasdaq for a very brief moment, I think, went above 20,000. That one has had a bit of a pullback today, but this one you could argue is just overextended. And maybe we do need to see it fall down to sort of more of a correction level, around about 19,000 by the time it gets there. I saw a news article to say that the first time in history, 3 companies have over $1 billion in market cap. I think it's Apple, Amazon, and Nasdaq, but I might be wrong on them. It might have been Microsoft as one. But yeah, doing very well. Why can I not see Nvidia? That's what I was looking for. Which again, having a bit of a pullback. Actually, a fairly decent pullback, but it has gapped down there. So maybe during this week we see that. I suppose that wick may have recovered it a little bit. I mean, those wicks technically have touched, so you could argue today it did get back up there or recover that gap. But anyway, we'll leave those talks for that. Anything else really for me to talk about? Not necessarily. I've just seen silver, which still hurts. I needed to sell it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not annoyed that I sold it, but I sold my silver for $25 an ounce, and got up to 32. So maybe I should have held on to that one a bit longer. But I didn't want to sell my Bitcoin, so it just seemed easier to sell the silver. But yeah, the things we could have done, eh? Why do I keep on doing that? I don't know. I think that's probably enough for where I'm at. Summary: whilst any of you thinks if they need got a question they want to ask or anything like that, it's continued to be a tough few days. Today has been particularly difficult, and it is testing. For those of us that have not experienced a bull run before, you're probably questioning if this is even a bull run. For those of you that bought in March when everything was much higher than the price that it is at the moment, don't necessarily give in just because it has been a rough few weeks, months. Try and maintain that bigger picture, that bigger understanding of where price can potentially go. And whilst past performance is no guarantee of what's going to happen in the future, I completely accept that. And nobody in crypto actually knows what's going to happen. It's just all about best guesses. I don't feel there's a seismic shift in sentiment, nor do I feel there's any reason to suggest that the 4-year cycle has broken. And with those two things in mind, we just got to ride it out. We know that altcoins will recover. Not all altcoins will, but altcoins will recover. And once that flip between Bitcoin and alt happens, you'll be amazed at how quickly they recover. So if you can't find any more funds to buy anything extra, I'm afraid it's just hiding away, not looking at your portfolio for a few months, just waiting for it to come. For those of you fortunate enough to take advantage of opportunities, whether that be side steps or actually just having spare capital to deploy, then have a look at it. But don't be greedy. Don't be, Tau's at 270, so I might be able to get it at 250. If you think now's a good price, if you thought 400 was a great price, then why are you thinking that 270 isn't? Having a look at some of the other projects that are out there. But also use this as an opportunity to see if there's projects like, I'm glad I sold 50% of my Glimmer. I have to unstake it to sell the rest, but it hasn't done well. And, maybe I should have taken advantage of getting rid of the rest of that. But it is now an opportunity to think, right, do I really need to be back in everything that I was in before? Is there other opportunities out there? And I've already talked about CAS as a potential opportunity for where I want to get in with. So, if there's something you don't believe in, then don't be holding on to it just because others have told you to. Use this time to reaffirm where you are, and there may be other projects out there that you'd wished you could put some more money into it. Maybe you just have to take a little bit of a hit on something else to be able to fill that up and then move on from it. I think that's it from me. I don't think anyone's asked any questions. I appreciate people tuning in a day earlier. Let's hope that England rewards. Yes, I care about the result. I want us to win the group. Let's actually have a bloody decent performance as well. That'd be nice, wouldn't it? It'll be back to usual next Tuesday. There is a trading pub on Thursday, usual time, new time, 1 o'clock. If you have anything for me between now and then, and as usual, hit me up in Discord or wherever you want to. And all I've got to say after that is thank you again for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Try not to panic too much about the prices. I'm going to have a little look at what Bitcoin's doing because we're getting nicely to the bottom of 59,000. But trust me, I'll still try and find some time to go to sleep as well and not panic too much. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I shall speak to you all soon. Cheers now.